of forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action. Uh, I'm not an expert, but it's just a kind of my area of interest, and I already started initiating working on forecast-based financing guidelines for Germany, so it's in a process. So that is what helped me to get a little bit of knowledge on this, by exploring different and documents, and also somehow it also links with the different DRR projects we have done in the past. So based on this, I just decided to share a little bit about forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action. So this component that I would be sharing is very basic. It's not in-depth analysis, but not in-depth information, but just a very basic idea to understand what it is and how it looks like and what is the advantage and disadvantage of this. So if you have any questions after the session, we can have the interaction. And it's basically probably I may not be able to answer some of the questions, but it's worth discussing this important topic. So the forecast-based financing, basically the approach is introduced and adopted to bridge humanitarian funding gap, basically to identify key risks, key vulnerable groups well in advance, updating contingency plan, using a database and ensuring required response well in advance. So that helps in bridging the gap during the most critical phase, like if any resources or assistance given before the evacuation of the population to be affected by flood, this would definitely help household to arrange or get the most essential support that may require during the initial stage of the disaster. So this helps in contributing in minimizing the negative coping mechanisms, reduces stress and trauma due to access to basic resources well in advance. Uh, and also in taking precautionary measures to reduce the impact of the disaster. So this will help people to have access to most essential commodities that is needed during the initial stage after the disaster. It's an anticipated action for disaster mitigation using a credible forecast. So the forecast based financing and early action is exclusively linked or related to the most credible forecast of weather related early warnings. And it also has to be from the most reliable sources like the one from the government. So this not only helps the community to prepare, but also supports local authorities to target well and provide assistance based on the specific needs that helps in reducing the impact. And also with climate change acting as a risk modifier, the need of anticipatory action are emerging more and more. The forecast-based financing is designed to minimize the impact of the disaster on vulnerable communities. So if you see the definition, the forecast-based financing is an early action in an anticipatory manner to assist the most vulnerable people at risk even before the disaster or crisis occurs. It is based on authentic early warning systems with defined triggers or thresholds informed by forecasts such as climate, weather, or other data set. The IFRC definition it says is forecast-based financing is a program that enable access to humanitarian funding for early action based on in-depth forecast information and risk analysis. So basically, the forecast-based financing is a future of disaster management because it's really emerging now and will allow the humanitarian actors and stakeholders and local authorities to see disaster management and response through a more innovative lenses, an approach to ensure that the vulnerable people at risk and their needs to minimize the risk are addressed based on evidences, effective planning and rolling out of the different response mechanisms and modality that is based on improved forecast that eventually reduces the loss of lives and property and also reduces the need for the humanitarian assistance aftermath. So this definitely helps, like if it is well targeted, well in advance, then the response needed after the disaster reduces automatically. So forecast-based financing triggers different early action by the humanitarian actors and governments, and it's not only limited to provide cash assistance. There is also some misconception that forecast-based financing is basically related to giving the cash, but also some of the examples that we get is it's also like to make adequate efforts in planning and investment based on the specific needs in shorter period to reduce the losses. And the definition of forecast-based early action is the early action is an activity or the intervention taken before the actual crisis hits or before the actual emergency occurs and is triggered by the early warnings generated by a reliable and verified sources such as from the government or private system. So forecast-based financing actually enables anticipatory action for disaster mitigation at the community and government level using more credible seasonal and weather forecast. Uh, like if I have to give an example, like for the cyclone, for the flood, we literally get quite early warning, and that definitely helps in preparing the government. So if the forecast-based financing is linked to that, then definitely it will benefit the people at the risk. So these forecasts are linked to the predetermined contingency plan. So at the government level, at the provincial level, there are existing contingency plans. So this forecast has to be linked with the contingency plan, with the different actors engaged in forecast-based financing and early action, and also funding instruments which are used to reduce the humanitarian caseload in the critical window between a forecast and an extreme weather event. Any standard operating procedures or the early action plans structuring has to be clearly sequenced interventions and are integrated into existing national, provincial, district, or any local contingency planning process. So there is a clear linkages between the different stakeholders, the early warning system, and the contingency plan that exists, or if there are any modification required in the contingency plan. So how this forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action works. The forecast-based financing and anticipatory action works well while keeping community at the center. So ultimately, the community and the beneficiaries has to be at the center of the whole planning process. Community's engagement needs to be from the very beginning, starting from updating contingency plan, because that is where they also contribute in identifying the hazards, different risks, mapping the risk and impact data collection of the potential communities at risk, training and awareness, etc. So different stakeholder has to come together to ensure meaningful and efficient response through forecast-based financing and early action. Different service providers, including key essential government departments, needs to be engaged. Like, I mean, this cannot be standalone by the humanitarian agencies, but different departments, line departments related to different sectors has to come together. Basically, the one responsible to validate and issuing forecast. If it is flood related, then definitely for this the department that issues the early warning has to be clear linkages with agriculture department, with other relevant departments. So how it works is basically by assess risk and impacts. So in order to better understand the potential impact of the extreme weather events on the different vulnerable groups, and to inform the design and targeting of anticipatory mitigation actions. So it is essential to assess the different risks, not only from the damaging intensity point of view, but also the vulnerability mapping, coping mechanisms, etc. So impact should not only measure on the quantum of damage disaster creates, but also the impact on different sectors that affects the community specifically. Second thing that how it works is identifying the capacity gaps. So the capacity gaps identification needs to be starting from mapping out of the existing early warning systems, how it is working, whether it is effective or not, what kind of information it is doing, what is the last mile coverage, how this is linked with different relevant stakeholders, and also forecast accuracy and also the mechanism that conveys those messages to concern authorities, stakeholders, and the different time related to passing the messages and actual expected occurrence of the predicted weather events. So most of the time it is also possible, especially in case of cyclone and flood, they can also predict that what would be the possible impact and what would be the nature of damage because of this, because of the occurrence of the disaster. So capacity gap also needs to be identified on mapping of the vulnerable communities at high risk, collection of their database, also mechanisms to update those database to ensure effective responses, identifying gaps related to service provisions like logistic, market, access to materials, preposition, etc. The third point is how it works is like agrees on threshold. So together with the national disaster management actors, the stakeholders, to determine the magnitude of an extreme weather event that can lead to like high, moderate, or low level impacts. So this threshold also needs to be agreed on. So that helps in determining the trigger to initiate anticipatory actions or the forecast-based early action. The threshold to be agreed are not only related to the weather event impact level, but also it needs to be on the kind of support that is needed. For example, in a flood-prone area, if people living close to river, lowlands, having a possibility of prolonged flood means they need to relocate to different locations. So altogether that requires temporary shelter, food, wash, or any other relevant support. So possibility of considering saving livestock to also need to ensure in terms of continuing livelihood related to livestock if the people are dependent on those. So the forecast-based financing is not only limited to giving cash assistance to vulnerable household, having possibility of deeper impact, but also it is now getting explored in providing larger support beyond targeting individual households. And then the fourth point is how it works is developing anticipated action. Now, based on the multi-stakeholders consultation, risk and historical post-disaster assessment, identifying high, moderate, and low-risk actions that can be completed in the window between a forecast and extreme weather event. So this anticipated action needs to be linked with the contingency plans to decide when to act by setting forecast triggers. So this is based on multiple factors, including forecasting capacity, the type of hazard, and the time and cost necessary to complete sector-specific anticipated action. Also, in developing anticipated action, we also need to focus on designing SOPs that outlines the action along with the actors' cost, different threshold, triggers, and predetermined funds to be mobilized in anticipation of an extreme weather event. So the SOPs should be aligned with the national disaster management plans and validated together with key actors through simulations. So it is very essential that any SOPs are developed that has to be validated and it has to be tested before it is actually executed in the community. And also monitoring forecast and act in response to high, medium, or low level trigger. Coordinate with key stakeholders to implement anticipated actions as per the SOPs. So assimilate lessons learned through action after reviews. That is also very essential. So the different approaches and modalities, what we could do. The humanitarian agencies basically have a limitations. We cannot do forecast-based financing at larger scale because of our limitations on the resources in terms of limited human resources or the capacity and access. So the approaches and modalities are to focus on the area that could be targeted or the action that could be done for the initiation of the forecast-based financing and forecast-based early actions. So community has to be in the center of every action, but essential to engage different stakeholders at different level that could actually support in planning and execution of the plan to benefit the most vulnerable ones through cost-effective and timely action that enhances the coping capacity and resilience of the vulnerable communities at risk. And so what we as an humanitarian organization do at large is basically the advocacy for including the forecast-based financing into an existing contingency plan or into an existing disaster management plan, and also promoting it that how effective it can be and how it can actually support the vulnerable household well in advance before the disaster actually strikes. So based on our experiences, based on the different learnings, we came up with the kind of approaches that is needed at three different levels. So one is at the government level. So in government level approaches, mostly we need to focus on advocacy and influencing local authorities to focus on forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action and integrating this into existing disaster management plan. It's very essential also of testing of models at local level, engaging local authorities and communities as a pilot because there are very limited tested pilot projects focusing on forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action. So this will give an evidence so to take a decision that help in advocating for integrating this into a disaster management plan. Also support in improving early warning system and mechanisms covering last mile data collection and dissemination at local level, engaging local authorities, communities, and other key actors. We can also, at government level, we can also facilitate and support in mapping out risk areas. That is where the community's engagement is also needed, and also digital data compilation and mapping. In one of the project in Indonesia, this is what we are doing basically to support government in data compilation, data collection, and demonstrating them that how to manage this data and how this data can be updated. So we have basically deployed key staffs in some of the essential department which focuses on data collection and helping them out by it's basically learning by doing so that they learn that how different data can be collected, different data can be compiled, and how those data can be updated, and who are the different people in the community level and different level that can get engaged in providing inputs on data and during the mapping. Also support in mapping of different government social protection schemes. This is something still in a process of exploring ideas that how this can be linked with. Like example, there are different government social protection schemes. So to seek and explore the possibility that how this can be linked with the forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action, and how this the data that is already available in the government can be used even for responding to forecast-based early action. Also facilitating training on developing workable protocols, because it's very essential to have the protocols, guidelines, and regulations for focus-based financing and focus-based early action, and advocating to include those in local, regional, and national disaster management plan. We can also do that at government level to advocate and train on establishing guidelines by allocating specific percentage of the fund for focus-based financing from the disaster management fund. So most of the governments usually at provincial level and district level, they have these funds also. So we can also advocate to allocate certain percentage for forecast-based financing, and advocating for channelizing social protection schemes and benefits through forecast-based financing during crisis period based on specific early warnings and disaster. And it is also sometimes we in some of the examples that says that if social protection schemes and benefits are linked, and if this can be triggered well on time, and if it can be linked with the disaster management, then this also helps to those most vulnerable households to receive the assistance on time that minimizes the negative coping mechanisms. And also facilitate in improving and strengthening coordination between early warning system and social protection service providers. And also facilitating in establishing learning platforms, seminars, workshops, and trainings to discuss and plan. At humanitarian organization level, what we could do is basically certain things are similar at government level also, like training and capacity building, partnering for testing and piloting forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action. Like from our Germany side, since last 1 year, we are trying to have a small pilot project, and we are exploring with the different organizations if somebody are interested to pilot this together, so that we can actually generate a good evidence-based learning that can be circulated as well as used as an advocacy tool. And also learning and sharing from different experiences through workshops and seminars, like some of the organizations like WFP, IFRC, they have implemented some of the projects on forecast-based financing and early action, especially WFP, who does lots of food distribution related to forecast-based early action. So those can be disseminated through learning workshops and seminars, promoting as an advocacy pools to have common voice and joint approach while advocating with authorities at different levels. It's also essential that exchange of learnings, information, and sharing the expertise. So I don't know if I have said this earlier also, like the German Red Cross in consultation with the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent have established an online platform called Anticipation Hub now to promote this anticipatory action. That is a platform where different organizations are part of that, and they are sharing different experiences, and it has a different referral documents also available there. So like ATA Germany is also one of the part of this Anticipation Hub, and this platform gives lots of information about if somebody is interested to learn about the forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action, and what are the different documents that are available across. And also raising the need of forecast-based financing in different NGO coordination mechanism platforms. It is also very essential because we have cluster systems, we have NGO platforms and forums. So it is also very essential to bring this up when we actually discuss about, preparatory trainings. That is where we can actually think of putting this also together to see whether it really makes sense and how it can be channelized also. And the third thing is at community level. So at community level, as I said earlier, also community needs to be the center of everything that we do, especially in disaster risk reduction programs. So at community level, what we need to do is more focused on training of communities on different risk, awareness and sensitization of the vulnerable communities on different social protection schemes, and also its benefits and promote further enrollment. So that also helps in minimizing, as well as if the vulnerable communities are aware on the different risks, then that helps the local stakeholders, the humanitarian organizations to plan for that anticipatory action as well. And the community engagement on risk mapping and digitalization of the information and data, that is very essential, because community, and there are people who can actually feed with the very informative data in the system as well, if the government wants to establish some kind of database of those vulnerable communities. Training of community leaders on social protection schemes and benefits, and also to possibility of linking with forecast-based financing. Training and strategy on forecast-based self-financing. Basically, it is at household level that how the annual household cash utilization plan can be made by each household, and small reserve can be kept for this early action at community level. So this is also very essential if we do any kind of DRI project there, if we can integrate this part also at household level preparedness. And then training of community leaders on livelihood continuity plan during crisis period, like rolling out of village level livelihood activities such as like draining, cleaning, cleaning and repairing of evacuation centers. All these activities can also be part of the forecast-based early action at community level. And also strengthening local information dissemination system, which is basically linking this local level early warning system with the centralized system, and also linking this with different service providers. It can be also tested through drills so that we can promote and we can advocate of having these drills at community level. Now, different financing modalities and approaches under this forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action. This is something that we haven't tested yet, but based on our studies and based on our discussion on several proposal development period in last 2-3 years, we feel that, that the forecast-based financing is not only limited to the disbursement of the funds that I said earlier, but also it is more beyond that. Basically, also about allocating and utilization of the different resources that includes the funds, manpower to prevent and mitigate the impact of disasters on lives, livestock, livelihood, etc., especially for the natural disasters like flood, cyclone, onset of droughts, epidemics, etc. So under forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action, there are certain funding mechanisms that can be tested and piloted and promoted to monitor the impact on the coping capacity and resilience of the most vulnerable community at risk. So one thing is like the direct cash grant. This is something that has been done by some of the agencies also. In Nepal, I think WFP and one more agency were doing this cash grant, direct cash grant. So under direct cash grant, we are aware that as under conditional cash transfer, and also cash for work activities can also be triggered or channelized through forecast-based financing, especially like flood, the establishment of evacuation center, establishment of the mount for keeping the livestock, and all those things can be channelized through forecast-based early action. Indirect community assistance under indirect community assistance based on the early warnings, especially for flood, cyclone, following are some of the assistance that actually could support the most vulnerable households in saving life, livestock, and assets. Each village's block or district have specific funds available for disaster response. Hence, specific guidelines to be included in the disaster management plan to make provision of the utilization of fund under forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action. Like the example, as I was saying, that establishment and temporary relief camps using local people, cleaning and maintaining of existing evacuation centers, relief camps using local people. So that also helps, like for flood, like 3, 4, 5 days early notices are given. So people have like 5 days cash for work activities can be done in cleaning the evacuation pathways and all those things. And that also helps in getting some money that will enable them to buy the most essential commodities that needed the most, like repairing of some water points and sources on the strategic locations. These are some of the activities that can actually be done as an indirect community activity at community level. And there are many other things that can be sit together and discuss with the community leaders and explore that what are the different activities that can be done utilizing the community level or the local level funds for forecast-based financing in early action. One of the key things that we are trying to explore, I mean, this is something that still is in a process of discussion and testing, that it has not been tested yet. So at Germany, we would like to test this also. The third thing, that linking government social protection schemes and benefits meant for vulnerable people with forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action. So this is what we would like to test also through our piloting and see that how it works. So in linking this thing is basically why it is needed is ensuring standard, how it is to be done is ensuring standardized protocols and guidelines that actually can emphasize linking government social protection schemes with forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action. Even with the minor changes can also benefit the vulnerable communities. Like for example, I mean, there are existing social protection services that is meant for the most vulnerable groups, the most vulnerable people like widow, old age people. And if this disbursement mechanisms can be linked, at least for this particular disaster season, for example, during the flood season, if this can be channelized and on-time disbursement is done, then that can also help in minimizing the negative coping mechanisms, and that also helps and benefits those most vulnerable people. Also linking social protection scheme service providers with disaster management committees in early warning system. That is also something, the huge gap that we see, that the communication and linkages between different line departments who are responsible for this. Updating and digitalization of the beneficiary list under government social protection schemes and entitlements, so that this also helps in the humanitarian organization and other agencies who wants to do forecast-based financing, they can use this existing data to identify. So you don't waste the time on compiling and collection of data, but you can use the existing data to trigger or initiate forecast-based financing and early action. And also try to advocate and negotiate in terms of provision for the disbursement of social protection schemes and benefits before the disaster occurs based on the focus and early action. So this is basically advancing. This is also one of the scope that can be explored and see how it works. And advocating for the allocation of at least a few percentage of the fund from disaster management pool at a different level for focus-based financing and focus-based early action. So these are some of the activities that needs to be done at the government level. And then there are certain challenges definitely and the limitations, because this focus-based financing and focus-based early action is not much tested, and there are not much findings and materials available, not largely adopted in global commitments like to find place in future commitments for sure, definitely, because it doesn't talk about any those bigger commitments like Sendai framework and other things. But I guess like since it's emerging now, so it is possible that many such global commitments and priorities will also try to consider this as an important aspect. There are very limited resources basically among the humanitarian agencies based on the focus for the focus-based financing and early action, because most of the funding that gets channelized is after the disaster occurs. So it really requires lots of advocacy, lots of discussion and negotiation with the different donors, especially because there is no specific provision. Only few has now, like for example, from IFRC, DREF has allocated a specific fund for focus-based financing, and ECHO is also exploring, but it's not yet confirmed yet. So that is one of the major challenges, and it is also not yet prioritized by the different state, the focus-based financing and focus-based early action, but the more focused is on once disaster occurs, then only the response gets initiated by the different stakeholders. Even that happens by the humanitarian organizations. So that's all from my side on focus-based financing and early action, just a basic introduction. So if you have any questions, specific questions, we can discuss it together. And if somebody wants to answer those questions from your experiences, can also share. Thank you. Over to you, Kelvin.
Thank you very much,
Kelvin, can you increase your volume, please, a bit?
Sorry. Thank you very much, Prakash, for that well elaborate and wonderful presentation. I would wish to welcome any opportunities for questions from the members. Thank you.
So any comments, any contribution on this? Because we want to test this, we want to pilot this also from our Germany side, and we are in a process of developing the focus-based financing guidelines specifically, which we would like to test also in near future.
I have a question, Prakash, about the funding. So I understand that the donor, for example, if you get the money from donor for this kind of activities, gives you funds and you keep them until the triggers or threshold is reached, and then it's released to the communities. So am I understanding correct that in between funds are held by NGO, and what if the threshold is not reached, I don't know, in 2-3 years? All the time NGO is allowed to hold the funding, or the donor hold the funding? What is the usual setup? And also interesting, I think, would be to know if you see can it be built into development projects, or it is only humanitarian projects that are part of it? Because I see it as a possible component of the development projects also, because then it's increasing resilience of the communities.
Okay, to answer your first question, number one is usually, this happens, the forecast-based financing early action in those areas which has experiencing quite frequent disasters. I mean, there are like frequent disasters. So that is where most of the time what happens, the humanitarian organization not only keeps the fund, but also a preposition of materials is also one of the part of the forecast-based early action. So that is also possible. And sometimes what happens is donor keeps the money with them with the commitment to the humanitarian organization. And also in last two HIPs in ECHO also we are seeing a specific allocation under crisis modifier. So any humanitarian action or even under the HIP, ECHO is also promoting humanitarian organization to keep that provision in the budget itself, the small amount, like few thousand euros as a crisis modifier. So during the implementation of the project, if something happens, then you already have a fund that just need to be discussed and implemented immediately. So similar way, I think it can also be integrated in the development programs where if you are working in an area which is prone to certain disaster, and you have experienced this in your project duration, then there is a provision of also having a crisis modifier budget, small scale budget to respond to those immediate disaster, because that is something, it's basically bridging the gap during your project period. If something happens, then the most essential need is the humanitarian response. And if you already have a provision in the budget itself in the developing programs, then it is easy and you don't need to discuss further and negotiate and wait for arranging the fund. So under the crisis modifier budget, you can have that allocation. And I guess in some of the EU projects, it is done also.
Okay. May I?
Yes, Anna, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Prakash. That was a very good presentation and very informative. And I was just looking when listening to the financing and thinking about the community managed DRR. You know, if this kind of funding, how much can it go also to building the local structures? Because like in our region, there is a gap between, you know, the high level and the local structures, because when an investment is done to them prior to any possible disasters in terms of capacity building, I've seen this in one of the programs we did in Zimbabwe, whereby, you know, when the community structures are strengthened, they were able actually to prepare early in advance, informing the communities that this area they should not build because this is the pathway for the flooding, or this is the pathway for the, you know, wildlife that attacks their, you know, their livelihoods or even their homes. So I think this funding is consideration to the local structures that will really be quite a good approach. Then the other thing I'm thinking aloud is concerning the accountability part. How is this funding being accounted for in terms of looking at the equity aspects of different players, and also in terms of information management for all the players to be able to access equally the information in as much as financing is coming, so that at least there is also a balance. But this is something maybe that can be captured within the piloting of these projects that we are doing. But I see has triggered more thoughts about this topic.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Just to highlight on your specific point related to the community infrastructure development, that is something that will come under the disaster preparedness activity. But the forecast-based financing and forecast-based early action is basically, this is the period between the forecast is generated and the actual disaster occurs. So whatever activities that takes place and during this period is considered as forecast-based financing in early action. So bridge this essential gap period where the most essential needs and supports are provided well in advance. But again, at the same time, as I said, also the key challenge is there is no adequate and specific funding available for this. So this is something this needs to be promoted and see that how the existing services and facilities can be channelized. Like for example, humanitarian organization cannot do it. I mean, we can do it in a very small scale, like probably 500 household or 1,000 household we can target maximum, but that is not sufficient. And the disaster strikes, it's massive. So somehow this is a more of a part of, from our side, what we need to do is more advocating and promoting this with the stakeholders and the governments, that how they can integrate this into their disaster management plan, and to convince them that the money they spend on disaster response will reduce if the forecast-based financing and forecast-based early actions are triggered or actually integrated into their disaster management plan, because this is something is very essential. And in coming back to the infrastructure development, yes, if there are existing infrastructures, if those needs to be repaired or if those needs to be cleaned or evacuation pathways or certain things needs to be arranged before the disaster strikes, those can be covered during the forecast-based financing, because that will also help in generating little bit of livelihood for 3-4 days to those communities, people, those who get engaged on those minor activities. So when they have money in hand, they can buy those essential commodities, and that helps in meeting their essential needs also during the disaster.
So okay, so our role actually is as ADRA is to get to that humanitarian space to advocate, to connect with others, to advocate for the financing. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, that is what is very much essentially needed, because there are very limited evidences available on this. So something that needs to be tested, and then we definitely need an evidence to advocate and put this in a larger platform and forum to discuss and take it forward. Yes, Radu.
Thanks, Prakash, for the presentation. It was really nice to see this. I just have a question in relation to the funding that are potentially available. What are the donors' impression of the focus-based financing? And do you have some experience working with some donors in terms of funding this type of project?
One is, as I said, DREF funding from IFRC. So for that, we need to coordinate with the local Red Cross. That is one of the options that is available at the moment. WFP, they also have this, but again, it's more related to the distribution of the food items, but only limited funding, they do a cash transfer. ECHO is now, they are just exploring this possibility, but what they have adopted now is a crisis modifier approach at the moment. But this is something that we can also expect in near future, that ECHO might be allocating some forecast-based financing and early action with these new regulations. We are still exploring this, mapping out that which are the potential donors actually who are more interested in forecast-based financing and early action that can be discussed and negotiated. But there are very limited information available on this as of now.
Well, I was asking this probably because there are several approaches now in Madagascar in relation to the focus-based financing, but it seems like the donors are not really interested in those aspects. Yeah.
As I said, the donor are interested. It's like kind of a very emerging thing. It's now very much new and emerging, and very small scale responses has been done so far. But in near future, in coming days, definitely it's going to be a bigger thing, where definitely it will bring the interest of all the bigger and larger donors who respond to the different disasters. But it can also be part of the disaster risk reduction programs if we have some kind of programs where there is a provision of integrating forecast-based financing and testing it at a small level, in a village level or community level. And this can be done with our existing donor as well. So it can be discussed with the donor if we are planning for any DRR project or any kind of risk reduction project where we can integrate this as one of the component.
Yes, thank you, Prakash. That was really helpful.
Go ahead, Kelvin.
Thank you, Prakash, once again, and for that informative presentation. So listening through, probably I just have an addition, and I see the possibility in the use of Earth observation systems, as you've captured through the presentation. More specifically, on the use of remote sensing and GPS applications that can be used in piloting a project in this topic. And this is more so for an evidence-based action or proposal development in DRR projects. And more specifically in establishing that spatial databases, now that most of these disasters take a spatial context, in then development of hazard maps and participatory GIS application, as you earlier captured on the involvement of communities, and also in support of real-time data collection. So I think it's just an addition on possibility of application of this technology in the focus-based early action and financing. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelvin. Yeah, that is something we are also exploring in our pilot. I mean, we haven't finalized yet, but it's just like we are exploring more funding to have it like at least 18 to 20 months project where we can actually do a real demonstration also during the actual onset of the disaster. So this is something that we are exploring since last 1 year to be tested in Nepal, because we have a very strong office in Nepal who have done several disaster risk reduction programs in the past and have a very good experience on different component of disaster risk reduction. So, and also we are now having little exchange of information with different agencies in Nepal to see at how we can do it together, especially in terms of advocacy, testing, evidence-based advocacy. So yeah, these are some of the components that can be really integrated in our piloting. Yes, Anna. Anna, go ahead.
I'm not sure because Kelvin was before me, but okay, I will ask and then maybe him. A question: how is it connected to the insurance? You know that there is this forecast-based insurance or something like this. Is this approach working together with this kind of insurances, with the advocating with the communities or the governments, or it's completely separate? Because it's more or less similar, just a different perception. It would be nice to hear. And another thing, are you working with the meteorological offices? Because I would imagine for threshold or triggers, you need some kind of measurable data. And the measurable data, I would imagine the meteorological office would be one of the places. Yeah, so 2 questions. Thank you.
Regarding the insurance, that is something that needs to be explored. I mean, as I said, that is just an emerging topic now. So that is something we haven't explored, and I don't see any referral documents also related to that. But I mean, definitely there are lots of scope in improving the early warning system and forecast system that is where lots of technologies and other things can be integrated. But that would be mostly at large scale level. But now what we are focusing is just to have like a small piloting, testing, more integration of and the different government social safety net. That is what we would like to see and test actually, because we feel that will really help in benefiting the communities, and not only the vulnerable communities, but also the stakeholders, because that money is already committed money and that resources is already available. So it's just we need to see and explore different options to channelize those resources, especially related to focus-based early action. During the normal peacetime, it is perfectly fine that disbursements are whenever the disbursement takes place. But if this can be channelized essentially during the emergency time, and definitely this will also reduce the burden on the government side also, because these people will receive at least 1 or 2 months advance of their money that they're supposed to receive. So that is something that we would also like to see in our piloting, and then see more like local level early warning systems, their linkages with different service providers locally, and then using that as a tool for advocating for larger actions, probably, or larger piloting. So, I mean, based on our small resources, we just like to see that how essentially we can focus on the small level first. But yeah, there are lots of things that needs to be explored, and we need to do lots of research on those available referral documents, research papers on this. Yeah, any other comments, questions? Any other additional comments probably from your experience? If no, then over to you, Kelvin.
Just a quick comment, Prakash. Once you implement this pilot, it would be great to have a follow-up webinar on the lessons learned and how it went.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is one of our key objective also, to share it with larger Aadhaar network offices. So yeah, that is something we will definitely do.
So having no other questions or comments, please allow me to stop the recording so that we can proceed with the normal meeting. Anna?
Yeah, did you stop the recording? Yeah, please go ahead and stop the recording. That was it. We'll share with the network and see how it goes.
Thank you.